Still looking at me.
And what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How you doing? It's your boy, the Multitasker, and welcome back again to another reaction. I'm relaxing right now from the sun's heat earlier today. God, it's not fun. But anyways, it's time to get back on this grind because, get this, I got a new request from Shadow, and looks like I'm going to be reacting to 5 freaky coincidences in WWE games, or I would like to say, I predict the future! Or somewhere like that. I'm assuming there are some craziness going on, maybe glitches, but one way to find out. So without further ado, it's time to react.
Occasionally in life, a weird coincidence will happen that will make you wonder if maybe there's a glitch in the Matrix, and both the wrestling and the video game worlds are no stranger to that. Today we're focusing on those coincidences that affected wrestling games specifically, and some of them are pretty spooky, so prepare yourselves. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell, because today we're looking at 5 spooky coincidences that happened in wrestling video games. Number 1. Eddie Guerrero's passing. Whew, talk about bad timing. Back in the glory days of wrestling game story modes, the scripts were often completely original in comparison to what was being shown on actual television. This is part of the reason that fans fell in love with them so much, as it didn't feel like a rehash of watching Raw or SmackDown. Instead, you could get your own news stories to play out. Well, unfortunately, this had ended up backfiring on the developers on a couple of occasions, and both of them have involved The Undertaker, strangely enough. The first example comes from SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, where as gamers were playing through the season mode, they would come across a story where the dead man was feuding with Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero. In-game, the feud culminated with Taker chokeslamming Latino Heat into a casket, which is pretty standard for a WWE storyline, right? Well, unfortunately that year's SmackDown vs. Raw's release came just a few months after the untimely death of Eddie Guerrero, so playing through it, it looked tasteless to say the least. Now we can't exactly blame THQ or Ukes for this, as work had been completed just before Guerrero's death, and this meant there wasn't enough time to make changes to the story mode, plus even the most pessimistic of people surely couldn't have foreseen that we would have lost one of the all-time greats at such a young age. Still, it is a pitch-perfect example of bad timing, and a spooky and uncomfortable coincidence for all involved.
This shit right there,
but at least there's no way anything like this could happen a second time, right? Well, number 2, poor timing part 2. Now we did say before that there have been a couple of particularly bad cases of poor timing in WWE games, and that both of them involved the dead man, The Undertaker. Well, this is the second one, and it's pretty bad if we're being honest. Just 1 year after showcasing Eddie Guerrero in a casket, 2K unfortunately found themselves with a second uncomfortable coincidence on their hands. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 story mode placed a lot of focus on the Phenom again. This time it saw him feuding at one point with Chris Benoit, where in a pre-match promo, he uttered this unfortunate line to him.
If you insist on making this mistake, then your grieving family will have no one to blame but you when the inevitable occurs.
Phew, we're pretty sure you can understand why this one is in poor taste with 2020 hindsight. It would only be a few months later when Benoit would end his wife and son before ending himself in what is probably the biggest black mark on the history of the sport, and something which made it very difficult to be a wrestling fan for a while. Now once again, the developers can't be blamed here, as they had no way of knowing such a horrific tragedy would happen so soon after the game's release. But if this doesn't qualify as a spooky coincidence, we don't know what does, quite frankly. It's almost as if The Undertaker was prophesizing what was to come. Number 3. The return of Brock Lesnar. Now the Beast Incarnate is and always will be one of the most dominant superstars in WWE history. After becoming the youngest champion in WWE history, Brock was admittedly fed up with all the politics and traveling that had broken down so many other wrestlers. Brock thought it was time for a change, and he left to pursue a career in both the NFL, UFC, and also continue his wrestling aspirations in New Japan Pro Wrestling. After so many years away from the WWE, it wouldn't be until April 2nd, 2012 that he would make his return to the promotion.
Brock Lesnar!
However, in WWE 12, the game predicted his return just several months before his actual return to the WWE. While Lesnar agreed to having his likeness included in the game, there was no indication that he was making a return to pro wrestling. In the game, during Triple H's story, Brock Lesnar makes a return and starts to attack the player. Again, this is well before Lesnar and McMahon had come to any deal on his pro wrestling return. This was just a deal to add him in the game, and they managed to fit his return into the storyline. Lesnar told during the premiere of the game's release on what it would take to get him back in the ring. It would have to be under the right circumstances. I don't know if Mr. McMahon and I could come to the right circumstances. If it was good for me and good for him, I think we could do something. At the end of the day, my life, my character, and my profession, I take them very seriously. At the end of the day, if it doesn't help me or my family out and doesn't make sense for me to do, then I don't do it. Everything would have to fall in the right place, but would I consider it? Absolutely. Well, it looks like everything made sense in the end, as Brock made his return on Raw and is still going strong in the WWE today. Number 4. 2K's Crystal Ball. 2K has had a remarkable track record over the years when it comes to predicting with spooky accuracy who would return to the WWE. Since they took over full control of the series from THQ in the 2014 edition, their pre-order exclusive characters have had a very high rate with determining who will be back in the company's good graces within the following year. Now, we should mention that while 2K is affiliated with WWE, the two do work independently, so wrestlers can have contracts to be in the game without having to have any formal relationship with WWE themselves, similar to how CM Punk is under contract to Fox, but currently appears on a WWE television show. With the exception of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey, all of whom had only recently returned to WWE television, every pre-order character quickly came back to the company afterwards. 2K14 featured the Ultimate Warrior's appearance as a big selling point, and only a few months later, the man who had been on the outs with the company for over a decade previous was being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame before passing away only 3 days later. In 2K15, it was Sting who signed up as the pre-order exclusive, and wouldn't you know it, he would appear at the Survivor Series less than a month later after having held out on joining the company for his entire career up until that point. Arnold Schwarzenegger, as we mentioned, showed up in 2K16 after having appeared via pre-recorded video at WrestleMania just a few months earlier, so we can't give 2K credit for that one. 2K17 saw Goldberg sign up as the big exclusive, and he would also return at Survivor Series less than a month later to shockingly squash Brock Lesnar in less than 90 seconds. Kurt Angle was announced as the pre-order bonus for 2K18 after having just returned a few months earlier, as was Ronda Rousey in 2K19, but it was Mysterio who kept the predictive streak going that year, as bar a couple of Royal Rumble appearances, he hadn't worked with the company for years after stints in the likes of Lucha Underground and AAA. Given the fact that his career seemed to be coming to an end, few expected him to be back, so when he was announced as 2K19's second pre-order bonus in June 2018, it must have set some fans' radars off. Any suspicions were confirmed when he signed a new contract with the company in September of that year. And finally, China had sadly died 3 years before her addition to 2K20, so we can't really include her in the argument.
And just to let y'all know that China was my favorite female wrestler. Rest in peace.
Now, you could argue that being in a relationship with 2K has helped open doors to these talents getting back in contact with WWE, but maybe we should ask 2K for next week's lottery numbers just in case. And number 5, the end of the road. Another spooky fact about 2K's predictive skills when it comes to WWE wrestlers getting back in the company's good graces is that with the exception of Rey Mysterio, all of the previously mentioned wrestlers are either dead or retired from wrestling very soon after their appearance. Now obviously Ultimate Warrior died soon after 2K14 was released, and China had been dead for years by the time of her inclusion, but let's look at the others. Sting's career would end almost a year to the day after his inclusion as a result of an injury sustained in a match with Seth Rollins at Survivor Series 2015. Arnie's promotion deal with the company ended in 2015, and there doesn't appear to be any sign he'll be showing up again. Goldberg has said himself that he now considers himself retired, and after that woeful match with The Undertaker at Super Showdown, maybe that's for the best.
Like
Kurt Angle's farewell tour ended in 2019, just over a year after his in-game appearance. And while Ronda Rousey is technically still under contract with WWE, speculation has been rife that she retired from in-ring competition following her loss to Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 35. The fact that Rey Mysterio seems to be the last one standing here is something of a miracle in itself, as before his stem cell treatment, his knees were so destroyed that we don't think many people expected him to make it past the middle of the decade. But there you have it, guys. 5 spooky coincidences in wrestling video games. Are there any more that we should be aware of? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.
Wow. I guess that's what happens when you partnership with a game company like 2K Games, affiliate with WWE company that would make some decent games, but sometimes even the developers would go out of their ways and would actually give a contradiction or predictions that most of the most talented names that would appear on their games before even that they would make a comeback. And I still say that was considered a dick move on not only to Eddie Guerrero, but to Chris Benoit. It's just, oh my God. Wow. I seriously agree that was a serious bad timing. Really, that was really too soon there. And the truth is that 2K Games is just really, it's not cut up as they used to, and especially after not making any progress with the latest games. Well, you'll see what I'm talking about, because when it comes to glitches, that's an issue. But most of all, that is very spooky and yet very interesting of what's going on, especially for like the return of Brock Lesnar. I mean, that would make sense because he's all about making money. And is it really true that Ronda is still technically still tied to the contract? Because, well, I mean, it's been quiet lately, but we'll see if she is going to make her comeback. But I think that would be it for right now. So thank you, Shadow. And if you want me to react of some of the worst game glitches when it comes to WWE, let me know. Just leave the link on the comment section, and I will make that happen just to prove my point. But as always, I'll catch y'all in the next video. So peace out, everyone. Good night. And also, don't forget to smash those likes if you enjoyed this.